Welcome everybody to this Employment Committee meeting tonight. It's nice to see you all back with us again. It seems a long time ago. Just a few housekeeping rules. This meeting is being streamed live on our YouTube channel, so the camera will be on you when you're speaking, but it could also be on you when you're not speaking, so just be aware of that. Please make sure all telephones are on silent or off, please, and in the event of the fire alarm going off, we will follow Tony. Okay, so the first thing is any apologies.
There are no apologies, Chair.
Good. The next one is to approve as correct records of the minutes of the meetings held of the committee on the 8th of February and the 17th of May.
Thank you. I just wanted to correct item 19, because certainly the discussion at the last meeting, and I'm sure that Councillor Colley will recall, we did actually agree that we would resolve the issue of the unions ad hoc before the last leader of the council left. So this has somewhat been delayed. So we did not agree that a 4-month delay in actually getting that resolved. And I actually chased the chair on a number of occasions regarding this. So I'd just like the minutes to reflect that.
I thought that's what they said. I mean, I agree. That was my understanding of what the meeting said as well, that you wanted the managing director to implement some amendments, but not to delay the introduction of the policy and then bring it back here for information, which I thought isn't that what was agreed. So,
Sorry.
oh, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, I agree with Councillor Cledo. I think the minutes are correct. So from that perspective, there was a discussion. There was a promise that there'd been ad hoc consultation before we got to this stage. That didn't happen, and I think I totally agree with Councillor Cledo. Not that we can change the minutes, because the minutes actually reflect the conversation. I just think it should be noted that it didn't actually happen, even though it was in the minutes, in terms of the follow-up that we were expecting. I know we've got the policy here this evening, but that was certainly the reassurance we were given at the time.
Sorry, the only slight issue here is that there isn't any matters arising. It's purely, are they a correct record or not? So if you want to add something in, that's fine, I'll add it in. Otherwise, are you happy with them to stand as they are? Sorry.
Thank you, Tony. I think in principle we did actually agree that we would have had the discussion before it came to this committee at this time, not that would actually be presented at this committee, because we felt at that time 4 months was too long for the length of time to actually discuss the paper. So I do think the meeting or the minutes are correct per se, but what the actions that we agreed at the time did not happen.
Okay, we probably need to take that away separately, but for the purposes of this item, are they correct or not? But yes, I agree with your understanding as well. Yes. Okay. Thanks.
I think that's a learning curve here somewhere along the line, that we must learn from this and not let that timescale lapse again. Right. So do you agree that both sets of minutes, the 8th and the 17th, are correct? Yeah? And you're happy for me to sign them? Okay.
Just to be sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Do we have any members' interests? Looking around the room. No, so shall we move on to item 3, workforce report? Yes, thank you.
Thank you. So this is our Q4 workforce information report, which covers from the 1st of January 2023 to the 31st of March 2023. At the end of Q4, the workforce had a headcount of 619 and a full-time equivalent headcount of 563.1. This is lower at the end of the previous quarter, where the headcount was 621 with an FTE of 565.7. The pay costs for 2022-23 were lower than expected. This took into account an underspend on employees and an overspend on contractors and agency staff. The underspend is part of the work that's been done to monitor the use of contractors. And whilst we will not see contractors completely removed, they will be used more for specialist roles and projects that are secured via one-off funding. And Karen has a paper talking about that later. Within the period, we had 26 leavers from the council, which was one higher than the last quarter. However, the percentage turnover for the 12 months has reduced down to 16.9%. In the period, 11 of those leavers were fixed-term Kickstart placements, which we've mentioned before, which was a funded government initiative. The reduction continues our trend of turnover reducing and is in line with the LGA benchmarking. From looking at the data, it can be seen that our top reasons for leaving are pay, job change, and flexible working. And the factors we've discussed in previous quarters are still valid now, and the top reason for leaving being pay, which is reflective of the current economic climate. Within the period, there were 2 retirements with a combined service of 34 years.
And if we can place on record our thanks for the years that they worked for HDC. Thank you.
Moving on to recruitment, it does continue to be a focus within the team. In the last quarter, our recruitment activity did increase, but this is what we'd expect in moving into the new year following a quieter Q3. We are still in a challenging recruitment market where we've had a number of failed recruitment campaigns where we've had little or no interest in vacancies. The most difficult to recruit areas have been planning and one leisure and environmental health, which continues a theme that we have been seeing. The recruitment team continued to work to make us attractive. We're enhancing our recruitment pages, adding our staff voices to show career progression and career routes for some of our employees we already have, detailing how they've moved through the organisation to show potential recruits what we can offer. We're also working with our local community groups to try and attract candidates from areas that we wouldn't normally be able to reach. And we've also supported services to rethink how they recruit roles and bring in more junior roles that can be developed into experienced employees. And environmental health was an example of this, where we actually made a more junior role and were successful in filling it. For our engagement in the quarter, in January, and a number of you were present, we had our iCare Awards ceremony, which is a great celebration of the hard work of our colleagues. In the period, we've also signed up 2 new colleagues onto apprenticeships, and we are developing our in-house talent by recruiting more people onto different apprenticeships, and we'll continue to look to do that. And specifically, we are at the moment focusing on planning to try and bring some apprenticeships into that area. Also included in this pack is the results to our temperature check survey that was held in January. We achieved a 44% return rate, which is above average for the type of survey that we held. Generally, the feedback was positive for people. However, the perception of morale came out as our lowest score of 2.61 out of 5. And just for clarity, what we asked for was people's perceptions. That may not be how someone is actually feeling, but it could be how they perceive others to be feeling. So we need to delve into that a little bit further to understand actually if it really is the case. And when ranking what people found most important in work, respect and job security came out highest. And we want to ensure that we give these to our employees as we work through. Summary of sickness. Our average sickness did decrease by 0.1 of a day down to 8.3 days per FTE this quarter. And the number of days did decrease down to 1,100. However, short-term sickness did increase. We're seeing the big changes due to the reduction in long-term sickness in the quarter. The top reason for sickness this quarter was stress, anxiety and depression, which is something we would expect to see in the early part of the year. So we see the dark, cold months, people coming out of Christmas period, having additional spends. And so we do expect to see that, and it is expected result. However, we will continue to monitor it and continue to offer the support that we do with our managers through our counselling services, our employee assistant programme and our mental health first aiders. Whilst actual days of long-term sickness have reduced this quarter due to the annualised reporting, this is why our sickness is still looking a little bit higher than we would like. At the previous meeting, I was asked if we could get rates for our neighbouring councils, and they have provided us information. However, they don't report in the same way as us. So they're giving us examples of their sickness for the year being either 6.61% for the year or 0.6 days per FTE for the year. But again, I believe that's short-term sickness, so it's not comparable with our data. Our HR caseload has decreased in the period. This has been driven by the number of absence cases coming to a conclusion, which is our long-term sickness. We saw the reduction. We've also moved to a more systemic way of reporting, which may have impacted the figures, but we'll get more accurate data in summary. So as conclusion, we're still facing the same challenges that we have been in recent months, but we're planning to use the information from the temperature check survey to create our workforce strategy, and we will be engaging with workforce to make sure that it's an inclusive report and strategy for them. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I'll open up for questions from members. Councillor West.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, I am concerned that a number of people are leaving because of pay. That does concern me, because if they're leaving because of pay, how can, and you seem to indicate there was problems with recruitment, I wonder if the two are tied together. It's so difficult, Chairman, that we as a local authority are capped, so therefore the amount of income that we get coming in can actually determine the amount that we can pay out. It does sadden me that we're not allowed, and this is something which can only be dealt with nationally, I'm sorry that we're not allowed to get the income in to pay the market price, because I guess where we're losing a lot of staff is planning, probably. Is that correct? And if we're losing a lot of staff in planning, if we don't increase the pay, I don't see how we're going to get the recruitment, and that recruitment that was commented on seems to prove that. So we're going round in an ever increasing circle, probably, or we're going round in a circle anyway. And that does concern me greatly about that point. And of course, if you haven't got, with planning, it has knock-on effects in other areas, which we shall read about probably later on in the agenda. But I don't know what the answer is, really, whether our cabinet member has got some thoughts on this. But it does seem to me that if we don't break that cycle between losing staff for pay but not increasing pay, I don't know how we're going to recruit to cover the services we need to cover. Thank
you. I should respond on that, and I think you're absolutely right. Is that we have had over a number of years now kind of a managed decline in public services where we've not been able to, we've had the cap, so you can't put up council tax. So a commercial organisation would be able to charge more for its products in order to, raise revenue for salaries and so on and so forth. We've been restricted, and obviously, as many members are looking at this, we are looking at other ways of raising revenues. I think one of the discussion points was green waste, which we talked about in the meeting last night. So it's a very, very difficult situation, and there are no easy answers to it at this stage. But we are looking at the moment to raise alternative revenues wherever we can.
quickly say, Chairman, it does bother me that where the workforce is concerned, 33% of councils, chief executives and senior management in England did not have enough skilled staff to run services to an acceptable standard. This is doing our residents down. They're paying their council tax and they're paying their other taxes, and it's doing them down because we haven't got the freedom to make choices and decisions on what we should pay to maintain the levels of skilled staff, and it's causing problems to the people that we represent. And anyway, I think this is really where government got grabbed this, and I think the local government association, I think this is where I wish Oliver had been here tonight. I'm going to make this point to him. I think I need to step in and say to government, look, you've got to give us the freedom to make these choices. And then the electorate will decide if they feel we made the right choices. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. I think probably we share some of that frustration, I'm sure, that you've expressed. Councillor Crawley?
Thank you, Chair. I just have a few questions. So on the FTE sickness, and obviously I noticed we've gone from 6.4 last year to 8.3, and obviously that has gone down slightly. The fact that our FTEs have declined over the last couple of years by about 40, how much impact will that have on those numbers? And is there a way of us being able to compare apples with apples rather than apples with oranges, which it feels like at the moment? Because we may well be getting our knickers in a twist over something that actually is not such a major problem, or as a major problem as it looks like, on 8.3 days per FTE.
So obviously the decrease in headcount will impact those figures. We can go away and we can have a look and see how we could report it differently. I don't know the answer off the top of my head, but I can certainly go away and investigate with my colleague.
If I may, Chair, I think it would be useful for us to have something, we know we're actually then looking at like for like rather than, as I say, a slight difference.
Thank you for that. Thank you.
Thank you. As usual, it's a very good and very comprehensive report. It's very clear how you laid things out, and it's very easy to actually identify the anomalies. And I'm glad you picked up the whole issues of the advantages. Okay, we don't pay enough pay, but what we do have is a unique selling point as a council is the security of tenure. However, it doesn't always pay the bills, so I would agree with Councillor West. But of course, those are some of the issues we could certainly enhance our recruitment policies on, and the flexibility. Because obviously, having worked in a local authority, the flexibility is incredibly helpful. So it's a real bonus. So thank you for that. The question I actually had was, I noticed you're actually going to use to help your recruitment policy. You're looking at a best public practice. Are they a recruitment agency? Because you've got them down as placemaking professionals. And I thought, what is that?
Of course, so they are, I believe, a not-for-profit organisation that help organisations such as ourselves get people into roles such as planning. So they help us with an apprenticeship, but they also give support to the individual that we bring in. So it's a combined thing of they help us source the individual, and they also support that person so we can try and retain them to then bring the skills in. So it's kind of a more rounded and approach to recruiting, and we're using it for planning, so hopefully to bring us in at least 2 planners to start with.
On a similar vein, I was actually continuing the conversation. What I mentioned earlier was about the unique selling point was actually training, and I noticed actually your training's fairly low. You're going in at fairly small levels with your NVQ type level training, and your numbers. I thought your numbers weren't very challenging. Can you just explain a little bit more about that?
Of course. So the apprenticeships of the level 3, that was our initial tranche of leadership training that we've offered out to managers. At the moment, we're going out to find people to do level 5 and level 7. We're also investigating across the council other roles where we could potentially launch apprenticeships, and we're also investigating doing some in-house training for leadership and management for our managers to upskill. And then as part of the strategy, we'll also establish what else do our employees need for now and for the future.
Is that for all staff, or is that just for staff who actually apply for the training programme?
So the apprenticeships, that's people who apply for it. So obviously there is a big commitment for them as well as us. For the leadership and management training, we'll be looking to do that across the council.
Thank you. I mean, I was very pleased to see about the apprenticeships. I think they're a very worthwhile thing. I think it helps people to perhaps sometimes dip their toes in to see, is this really what I want to do? What area do I want to work? So I was really pleased to see that. With the staff survey, could you just say a little bit more how you're going to engage, because morale was low or perceived to be low?
Of course, yes. So as part of the workforce strategy, we're going to go out and meet with our employees in listening groups to firstly delve into some of the responses, and certainly morale will be the big one that we focus on, just to understand why there is that perception. Because I think if you talk to people informally, that's not necessarily how people feel, but I think that's how we may think other people do. And then we will then look to what else we can do to try and improve that through all the things that we could potentially offer through a strategy. As I say, I would also make the point that obviously we did hold this survey in January, which obviously isn't necessarily the most positive month to be talking about morale.
Martin?
Yeah, can I just to add to the previous comment I made to Councillor West there, and the workforce strategy of actually saying that generally, and I'm not 100% on where it falls, but salary generally comes about number 6 in people's reward and recognition and so on and so forth. And obviously, we're in extremely unique times, so let's not underestimate the salary situation for staff. But the opportunity of staff to kind of shape, for example, how rewards are distributed, what kind of training that they want, and to shape the organisation is an opportunity that I don't think, certainly in commercial organisations that I've worked for, that's pretty much unheard of. You're just told this is what's going to happen, whereas I think we're opening up an opportunity to staff to kind of shape the way that their working life operates, if you like. Obviously, it has to work for the council as well, but I think that's a really ambitious and great opportunity, and I'm going to watch with great interest to see how that goes.
Yes, thank you. And obviously, we would encourage everybody to get involved in that to help shape that work shape. Thank you. So we'll go to number 4. Workforce profile report, please. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm presenting the Workforce Equality Profile 2023. So this report gives an annual summary of the profile of the workforce of Huntingdonshire District Council as at 31st of March 23 by the protected characteristics as defined under the Equality Act. So as you'll be aware, all public sector employers are required under the Act to publish the equality profile data it holds for its employees. So I won't go through it, but you'll see the report includes the 3 aims of the equality duty. The equality monitoring questions are optional, therefore the Council does not hold a full set of information for every employee. When we reported on the data last year, we committed to work on increasing the declaration rates before we could look at an action plan or comparisons against census data. In taking this forward, we have, in this last year, sent outcomes to all officers with a poster explaining the importance of collecting the data and what we do with the information. We've also sent reminders out to staff. We then went via managers, giving them the percentage of the staff in their team that had completed and not completed the information to help give it a bit of a push. And then the last thing we did before bringing this report to committee was to email individuals that had not completed the information directly. From doing this, you can see in the report, I've taken 2 categories. So for disability, we had 429 employees that had not declared if they had a disability last year, compared to 146 this year. And for ethnicity, we had 163 that had not declared, compared to 119 this year. So although we have made progress and have better data to analyse, we will continue over the next year to make targeted steps to increase the declaration rate. So our next steps, we will analyse the information against the census data, which will help us to evaluate how representative our figures are and to help draw up an action plan that we will bring to the September committee. This will help evaluate areas for improvement. You will see from the report that some early actions have already been identified and completed, including the disability at work policy, which has been brought today. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for this? I would just like to say I thought it was good. It's good to have this. It shows open and transparency about our workforce. So I found it quite good. Councillor Collins.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to ask, I mean, this is good stuff, and thank you for sharing it with us. Are there plans to hold some sort of, activities in the workplace, highlighting diversity, highlighting inclusion? So I know in places I've worked before, there's been sort of maybe diversity weeks, and there's been lots of events laid on. There's been lunchtime talks, all those sort of things. Just again, it raises the profile so that next year, it gets a better response. I just think if people see that this is something the organisation takes seriously, and it's not just a matter of filling out a form and appearing on a chart, but actually we're genuinely wanting to understand and celebrate, then perhaps, we're just coming to the end probably of Pride Week and Pride Month. Was anything arranged internally around that is a question. So it might just be another way of highlighting and helping.
So absolutely agree. And some of the steps we're taking already, we've started working with the other councils as well on the Equality Pledge. So that's going to be a good source of sharing what others are doing and see what we can implement here. But it's definitely going to be a case of talking to staff, seeing what other ideas everyone's got so that we can do some really positive work around this.
So the next one is item 5, the use of consultants at hire staff and temporary staff. I think, Karen, you're going to lead on this, I think.
Good evening, everyone. So the report I'm bringing is detailing the use of hire staff, temporary staff consultants across the council for the financial year 2022-23. In total, across both the capital and revenue budgets, our use of staff, temporary interim staff, has reduced by 300,000 year on year. But the reduction is all within the capital budget and reflects the volume of project activity in year. Expenditure within the revenue budget has increased by 200,000. The reasons for this are included in the report, and I'll allow you to read those. But they reflect areas where we either have a short-term need for specialist knowledge, and it wouldn't make commercial sense or economic sense for us to recruit somebody and permanently for that. We have a short-term need for resource, such as if we were administering grants on behalf of the government, or where there's a skill shortage in the market and we've had to cover using temporary resource and planning, I think is the best example of that. As I said, our expenditure in total has reduced. As SLT, we look at the use of consultants on a monthly basis. We monitor that. All new consultants are approved by us before they are recruited, and we are trying to make sure we make best use of the council's budgets when we're using those staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. So, any members, any questions for this? I think it's good that it shows. Sorry. Oh, sorry, Karen. Yeah, go.
Thank you, Karen. Useful. What areas are we actually recruiting? What is it? Project management, program management areas that we've got the temporary consultants?
So it's either in the capital projects where we are using them as project management resource, or it's areas such as within the commercial estates where we need specific planning advice, or specific projects where there's a very key skill that we need.
Yes, I was just going to say it's very good to have this table which shows where the expenditure has been and where we've used consultants. I think that was something that we did ask for. So, thank you for doing that. Thank you. Okay, yeah.
Thank you. So this is our HR policy update. As we have done in the previous 3 quarters, we have been reviewing and updating our policies to ensure that we are legally compliant and reflect current practice within HDC. We're bringing the next set of policies, which are our disability at work policy, our improving performance policy, and the leave arrangement policy. The improving performance policy and the leave arrangements policy had minimal changes, with version control adding and sentence clarity changing. The disability at work policy had the biggest changes in, and the main change was we added our adjustment passport, which is for any of our employees who may feel they need adjustments within the workplace. The form isn't mandatory. It's something that an employee can fill in and share with their manager if they wish. But it would transfer with them. So if we move jobs within the council, you would take that with you and you would own that document and review and refresh it as you moved along. And we asked the committee to consider and endorse the updated policies.
Thank you. Members, have we got any questions for this? I mean, I think for the leavers, is it the leavers policy? I think I asked some questions around buying annual leave, carrying over annual leave, first aiders getting extra days off. I think these are all good things that we can promote about working here. I mean, buying annual leave, are more people using that now?
Yes, so it was introduced last year with only a handful of people taking it up, and we've seen a significant rise this year, and we hope to see that continue.
Councillor Corley?
Thank you, Chair. I think I've answered my own question before I asked it, but anyway, I'll ask it. I noticed that we allow time for volunteering for reservists. Do we have a general volunteering policy within the organisation? So, for example, if an employee or a group of employees wish to volunteer for a local charity or get involved in something like that, do we have a clear policy on that?
We don't at the moment, no.
Okay.
Thank you. Just going back to the annual leave thing, have you set a level on the amount of annual leave, the maximum amount, something?
Yes, employees can buy up to a maximum of 5 days as long as it doesn't reduce their wage below the national minimum.
Have you considered longer than that? 5 days, is that just 5 days per annum or half year or something? That all they can buy is five extra days in the year? Okay, is that in line with neighbouring councils?
It's in line with best practice. 5 days tends to be the standard.
Martin?
I was just wondering if we could add volunteering to the workforce strategy discussions. I think that would be an excellent, talking about optionality for staff to get involved. I think it could really fit in with our core values.
Okay, thank you. And then the committee's asked to consider and endorse the update of these policies. All in agreement? Thank you. So next one is the 7, revised time off for the trade unions. Yeah?
As you're aware, at the previous committee meeting, we were asked to go away and define what reasonable would look like within HDC. We've been away and done some benchmarking against other councils that have a similar headcount and have union representatives that are not full-time representatives but are similar to make up to our workforce. And based on that benchmark, it appeared that 1 working day per official, taking us a combined 60 days per year across all of the representatives, was a reasonable figure, with the caveat that if it required more, there would be an agreement with the strategic HR manager. In addition to this, it's recognised we need to support our representatives to become fully trained and to maintain their skills. So each representative is entitled to 5 days for their initial training, and then their 2 days refresher training every 5 years. Anything above that, again, would be agreed with the strategic HR manager.
Thank you. Has anybody got any? Councillor Corley?
Thank you. I just wanted to say, Chair, that thanks for doing this work. I think it's a better document because of it. I think we're all quite clear now on what we're going to be doing going forward. So we've laid the ground rules. So thank you for. And it was probably a bit of a performance as pushing you to that. But I think hopefully you recognise it's a better document for it. I have one question around. I like the fact that we've included time off for health and safety representatives. I think that's very important. I just want to remind the Chair that back in our November meeting, we did discuss health and safety, and there was a request that we had health and safety reports come to this committee at some stage. I know there was a bit of pushback at the time from, I can't remember who, and that was the Managing Director's prerogative. I think this committee, if I remember rightly, asked that that could happen. We're still waiting for reporting to come. So now that we've agreed for time off for our health and safety reps, I'd like to think that we could start seeing some sort of reporting in our reports around near misses, around sickness related to health and safety incidents, all those sorts of things, and just understand what the structure is and how it's being managed. I'm sure that our union reps will also be interested in that. So it's the sort of thing that I think we should see in this committee too.
Yes, I mean, I've sat on this committee for quite a while, and I agree, health and safety used to always come here, so I think that is a good thing that we have that information if we could. Councillor West?
I just wondered in the formation of this policy whether any consideration was given when you talked to the previous system of the staff council, how much time that they took off. Was that ever discussed with them to give you some idea? I mean, obviously you've picked time off, etc. You're giving it careful consideration, and this is no way being disrespectful for what you've done. But I just wondered, Chairman, how much the staff council took off when they was carrying out the same duties. And the staff council are employees of the council, while the union isn't. And I just wondered if, like you said, well, in the past, I mean, when Stephen was chairman of this employment committee, you used to meet regularly monthly and then go up and see the managing director and tell the managing director what the staff were thinking and try to get change. And I'm wondering how much time they had off. Did it amount to this 60 days? Because when you're looking at it from the outside, it does seem quite a lot of time. Just if I may leave that thought, thank you.
Thank you. I don't know if you want to come back with that, Nikki. Yeah.
I didn't ask previous staff council members, and I think the reason for the time is just to allow that flexibility, because whilst it's not just the meetings, it's supporting our employees with disciplinary issues, personal issues, supporting at consultations. What we didn't want to do is make it a too small a time-bound piece and then create extra work for everybody. So that's why we went with a little bit of flexibility. But I think it is reflective of the work that our representatives would do and what the employment reps groups would do as well.
Thank you. I mean, I see that this is going to be reviewed annually, so we will be keeping an eye on this to see how it works, if there's any bumps along the way. Yeah, okay, thank you. And the last item is 8, is representatives from the employees. If you've got anything you